Happy Monday, everybody, on this blizzard in New York that's pretty much affecting almost everywhere you go. And I actually just got back from Las Vegas where it wasn't exactly peachy, rosy there either. You know, you'd think for a desert you would have nice warm weather, but no, it was actually raining, cold, pouring. It was just basically, when I got back to New York on Friday and the weather was exactly the same that it was in Vegas. So you can't really escape this weather. And I was supposed to stay throughout the weekend, but thankfully I came back because the airports are officially closed until further notice. So, does anybody really want to be stuck in Vegas? Anyway, um, I came on Friday, and the first thing I heard when I got off that plane was the ruling that everyone expected, which is from a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court said what everyone else has been saying for months, which is tariffs are illegal and unconstitutional and therefore null and void. Um, they also said that only Congress has the power to enact any new taxes. Again, nothing new. This is what everyone was saying. The only justices that were that dissented, surprise, surprise, were Alito, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Three corrupt judges who are part of the MAGA, and surprise, surprise, the only three judges that Donald Trump praised and praised. And not only that, he read Justice Kavanaugh's ruling and twisted it. Well, first of all, I got to say, kudos to these six judges who did the right thing and worked in America's favor. It goes to show that we still have a Supreme Court. It still goes to show that we still have a court of laws, and it still goes to show you that Donald Trump isn't as powerful as he likes to think he is. So kudos for the Supreme Court for doing the right decision. A decision that Donald Trump said was the wrong one, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. And he went over and attacked those judges. But as usual, Donald Trump was reading the ruling from Justice Kavanaugh to why he sent it, and then twisted it to to what he wanted it to say. The thing with that is that Donald Trump has no idea what the hell he was reading. Donald Trump doesn't know anything about the law, doesn't know anything about economy. He doesn't know anything. And I'm going to say this again: for a man who went to Wharton, which is a prestigious business school, but for a man who went to Wharton, he sure as shit knows shit about absolutely nothing. And he's reading this reason from why Kavanaugh said no, and Trump decided, nope, these judges did the wrong thing, and not only am I going to keep these tariffs, but I'm going to quote impose even higher tariffs on countries that play games with existing trade deals after the Supreme Court's recent decision. And he quoted, he says, any country that wants to play games with the ridiculous Supreme Court decision, especially those that have ripped off the USA for years and even decades, will be met with a much higher tariff and worse than that, which they just recently agreed to, buyer beware. The court ruled that Trump had overstepped his powers in enacting a sweeping global program of tariffs. After the ruling, the president announced first a 10% and then later a 15% global tariff. The new rate will become effective from Tuesday, which is tomorrow, February 24th. Now, he's saying, I'm going to finish reading the article, but he's saying the ridiculous Supreme Court decision. So basically what he's saying is, because the court ruled against me, I don't acknowledge it, but when the court rules in my favor, they are heroes to me. You see how this is? He's trying to say that I know better than the judges, and the only judges that are worthy of my time are my heroes. And he says that this was democratic and a foreign entity that swayed them to vote against him. First of all, no, they didn't. Number one. Number two, Amy Coney Barrett, a judge that Trump appointed in his first term, voted against him. Voted against him. Does this mean? Excuse me, I'm recording this in my house. Does this mean that Amy Coney Barrett is now compromised because he had figured that if I put my own Supreme Court justice into the Supreme Court, they will rule again. They will rule in my favor, which is what I was hoping for. But no, just because it's just because you didn't like a decision doesn't mean it's ridiculous. It means the judges were doing their law. These judges have law degrees. They went to law school. They studied the Constitution. That's number one. Number two, you don't even know how the Supreme Court works, but neither do I. And I don't claim to know how they work. But I can tell you that from what I do know is they don't make these decisions lightly. The reason why it takes weeks or months for the Supreme Court to actually make a decision is because they're going over the case, they're researching, they're going through 250 years of law. They're browsing through the Constitution. They're looking at how it affects others. And there's a whole bunch of things that I don't know. And somebody did ask Justice Katani Jackson why there's no ruling, why the ruling takes forever. And she was saying it's not easy decisions because, the Supreme Court is the law of the land. And so whatever decisions the court makes is final and has to be upheld for all time until otherwise not. And it's not ridiculous. It's basically what everybody was saying. Even the International Court said it was illegal, unconstitutional, and already they ruled months ago that it's illegal, and that nobody has to honor it. And the Supreme Court basically said, "Yep, we're correct. We're not going to honor it because it's a tax you had no authority to enact because you're not Congress." And when Trump is saying it's ridiculous, well, we all know that Judge is a moron, that Trump is a moron, not a judge. We all know that Trump is a moron who thinks he knows better than economists, thinks he knows better than Jerome Powell. Basically, he thinks he knows better than everybody else, but he doesn't. Anyway, tariffs are taxes on imported goods. I'm going to say that again. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods. The taxes paid to the government by the companies that bring in the foreign products, but they want their money back, so they come to us, the consumer, and put it into the price of whatever we're paying for, which makes it more expensive. There is no reason why I should be paying $15 for coffee. There is no reason why my coffee should be going up in price. There is no reason why a cell phone that already costs $1,000, if you buy it outright, should go up to an extra $500. There is no reason for that. The top court ruling only applied to Trump's invocation of the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is IEPA, which accounted for the bulk of the tariffs that he has imposed during his second term. Meanwhile, a complex patchwork system of more specific tariffs, which target American imports of certain goods or imports from certain countries, remains in place. The Trump administration is also examining other legal mechanisms by which it could raise further tariffs, a fact that was highlighted by U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer on ABC News on Sunday, who said, "We found ways to really reconstruct what we're doing. Now it doesn't have the same flexibility that the president had under the previous authority that he was using, but he gives us very durable tools." Greer said this plan will be roughly equivalent to the types of tariffs that we have in place under IEPA. The legislation now used by Trump can only apply for 150 days, after which Congress must be consulted for an extension, which he has no intention of doing. But in a separate Truth Social post on Monday, Trump said he did not believe he needed congressional approval. And again, he does. The courts ruled you are not God. You do not have absolute power. And I'm going to keep stressing this. There is a reason why our founders created 3 separate branches of government, which is judicial, legislative, and executive branch. The executive branch is the White House. The judicial branch is our court systems, and the legislative branch is the Congress, which is the House of Representatives, and the United States Senate. That is it. No president in history, as much as I've been alive, has ever gotten themselves involved with behind the scenes of Congress. They have never gone against Congress. And when Congress put the president to check and said no, the president respected that and try to work to figure out a way to do it legally. So no, he doesn't. So yet no. So no. What Donald Trump is saying, he doesn't believe he needs congressional approval, is exactly the opposite of what the court said. Every court said the same thing. The Constitution said the same thing. You cannot do whatever you want. If that was the case, we wouldn't need a Congress. We wouldn't need a Senate. We wouldn't need a judicial branch or a legislative branch if the president had full power of authority. And do you know why the president has a system of checks and balances in place? For exactly the reason that Trump is doing, being a dictator. That's not who we are. We are a democracy. We aren't a dictatorship. We aren't a monarchy. We are not a fascist state, and we're not an authoritarian state. That is not what we are. But Trump likes to think he's a dictator, he's a fascist, and he could do whatever he wants because he's the president of the United States. Well, newsflash, you can't do whatever you want, and the Supreme Court ruled that. So no, you do need congressional approval, no matter what you think. If you want to be delusional and tell people that, that's fine. But people who know better, people with law degrees, people who know constitutional law, like Jamie Raskin, like the great Lawrence Tribe. Yeah, these are people I would respect, and if they tell me you can't do it, and they tell me why you can't do it, take them at their word, because one teaches Harvard, and one taught in another college constitutional law. And when you are experts in that field, you tend to listen to them. Because why would I go to my doctor for housing advice? My doctor's a doctor. You want medical advice? You go to a doctor. You want legal advice? You go to a lawyer. Why would I go to my butcher and ask him about buying a car? What does a butcher know about buying a car? What does a math professor know about? What does a math professor know about a brain tumor? You can't just decide who you're going to go to for advice because you're not going to like their answer. And if you're not going to listen to your doctor, then why go to your doctor? If you're not going to listen to the law, then, So he writes in his Truth Social, it has already been gotten in many forms a long time ago. They also just reaffirmed by the ridiculous and poorly crafted Supreme Court decision. No, it hasn't been recrafted. He's basically he's so delusional that he thinks the Supreme Court actually said he won. When he's going by the three justices that dissented and saying he's allowed to do whatever he wants. He's saying they reaffirmed a poorly crafted. He doesn't know the law. Did he even read the lawsuit? No, he didn't read the lawsuit. Did I read the lawsuit? No, I don't have to read the lawsuit because I know my law. I know the law. I know Constitution, and I went to school for history. And when I went to school for history, and as far as I know, the laws didn't change. But as far as I know, Congress we have a system of checks and balances put in place for a reason. And the reason is because to prevent things like this happening. And in fact, when George Washington became president, they asked him, "What do we call you?" His response was, "President, no more, no less." And he knew why. But when they wanted George Washington to run again for a third term, he actually said, "No, I don't want to because I don't want to be I don't want to be powerful. A president should have term limits because otherwise they will rule absolutely. And that would defeat the purpose of who we are as a democracy or republic, which is pretty new." And George Washington wasn't a stupid person either. Okay? Unlike Donald Trump, George Washington was a general. In the American Revolution, George Washington deserves to have his name on things that he has his name on. Washington Heights, Fort Washington, Washington Monument. Washington actually understood how government works. And that has nothing to do with the fact that he helped create this country, because he understood that if the republic fell, we go back to what we were running for, what we were trying to get rid of, which is tyranny rule under a monarchy of Britain. And imagine we were part of Britain today. Imagine it. And the majority, and most people who are presidents are usually congressmen first or senators, even governors, you know, or even lawyers for that matter. In fact, Governor Newsom is hinting that he's going to run for president in 28, and he probably would win too. He probably would win. And the Supreme Court is the law of the land. And once they rule, that's it. You can't appeal it. You can't argue it. There's nothing you can do. The Supreme Court was specifically created for this reason. The Supreme Court was created for the purpose of making sure that the laws of this land are kept, that the Constitution is followed by everyone, including politicians. And they were no better and they were no different than people like you and I. Politicians would have to be held accountable just like everyone else, which is why Harry Truman had a sign on his vest that said the buck stops here, which meant it's my responsibility. I take full account of what happened because I hired these people into my cabinet. I nominated them. If they screw up, that's on me. I'm the boss. And so I will take accountability for that. And that's what happened. If what happened with Pete Hesketh with the signal scandal happened under any other president, you can bet your bottom they would have been fired a long time ago. You can bet your bottom dollar that Kristi Noem would have been fired a long time ago if this is any other president. But because it's Donald Trump, but he continues. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer warned on Monday that Democrats would block any attempt to extend the 150-day tariffs. He says in a statement, Senate Democrats will continue to fight back against Trump's tariff tax and will block any attempt to extend these harmful tariffs when they expire this summer. Democrats will not go along with furthering Trump's economic carnage. Donald Trump has long argued that tariffs will boost domestic manufacturing and create jobs, and also use them to pursue a variety of other political ends. First of all, if anything, people are losing their jobs because of these tariffs, because something's got to go. When you're raising taxes and you can't afford them, something has to go. So what's going to go? What's the first thing going to go? The job, because they can eliminate that job, but they need their products. Why? Because if they don't have the products, there's no business, and if there's no business, there's no jobs. You understand? And this hurts more the mom and pop stores, because these mom and pop stores are so small that they can't actually afford to pay for these tariffs, and so they go out of business. So what Donald Trump is telling American people is he's basically gaslighting you by saying tariffs are great because it'll create economic jobs. He's not explaining how. There's no charts, there's no nothing. He's just saying it's going to create jobs. What he's basically saying is, I want your money. I'm going to pocket your money, and you won't even know that I'm stealing it because of how I'm saying it. But everybody knows, read between the lines, this isn't about you or me. This is about Donald Trump simply getting rich off the American people without them even realizing it. And can you really trust a con artist? Can you really trust a felon? Here's a guy that's been convicted of 34 counts, okay, for cooking his books. His own CEO of Trump, of the Trump Enterprises, is sitting in jail for cooking the books. Okay, Donald Trump is punished that they can't practice anywhere in New York. He's not even open up a casino anymore. I mean, here's a guy who banked 4 fucking casinos, which is pretty much impossible to do. How the hell do you bankrupt 4 casinos in the same city, within months apart from each other? Trump Tosh became Hard Rock Casino. Trump Marina is now Golden Nugget. How do you manage bankrupt casinos? I mean, Think about this, and nobody seems to put this together. Think about this for a second. You had Trump University, which people signed up for it. There was a whole website. People signed up for it, and guess what? Months later, there was no thing. Where was the university? Where were the courses? Where were the online? How come nobody was getting lesson plans? Because Trump University was a scam. And these students who signed up sued to get all their money back. And guess what? Trump lost that case and he had to pay back everybody from that. Did they ever get the money back? Did they ever get that money back? I don't know. Oh, wait. I don't know. Let's find out. My mistake. Donald Trump did operate a for-profit entity called Trump University from 2005 to 2010, which offered seminars in real estate, asset management, and entrepreneurship. It was not an accredited college or university, did not confer degrees, and faced lawsuits alleging fraud, resulting in a $25 million settlement. It was a for-profit, unaccredited seminar company designed to teach real estate strategies, often using high-pressure sales to sell expensive packages. Former students filed class action lawsuits alleging that the seminars were misleading and fraudulent, promising access to hand-picked instructors that did not exist. In 2018, a federal judge approved a $25 million settlement to resolve the lawsuits and complaints from students without any admission of wrongdoing by Trump. Of course not. Why would he ever admit that he was wrong? Why would he ever admit that? You have to understand. Donald Trump has been diagnosed as a sociopathic narcissist. Okay? And I can tell you from experience, narcissists will never, ever apologize, even if they're the ones at fault. They will never admit to wrongdoing because if they admit to wrongdoing, it makes them look weak in people's eyes. So they'll blame it on somebody else directly. They'll blame it on someone else directly. But he lost that case, but he didn't do anything wrong, according to him. Now, due to investigations by the New York Education Department regarding the misuse of the term university, the entity was renamed the Trump Wealth Institute before it closed. So, all so here's a couple of things with the casinos. You had Trump Plaza, Trump Marina, and the Trump Taj Mahal, which faced multiple chapter bankruptcies and financial struggles. With Taj Mahal, that did not maintain profitability. Trump Shuttle, which was purchased in 1989, this airline failed to turn a profit, was ultimately taken over by lenders. Corporate bankruptcies. Over his career, several of his corporate entities filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy: 91, 92, 2004, and 9. Branding and other ventures. Numerous branded products and companies failed, including Trump Mortgage from 2006 to 2007, Trump Steaks, Trump Vodka, and Trump Magazine. Well, first of all, Trump Vodka is basically just vodka, putting your name on the label, thinking that, oh, well, if it has a Trump name, people will buy that over, say, Grey Goose or, or Tito's or Absolute. And Trump steak again, it's just steak, putting the Trump stamp on it, and people will buy it because of the Trump name. According to the New York Times, Rachel Maddow reports his core business reported over $1 billion in losses during the 1980s and 90s. $1 billion in losses. I'm not an economist, but that's a lot of money. And if a business is losing billions of dollars through the years, well, that's a problem, and you wouldn't last in business that long, now would you? Throughout his career, Trump has used licensing to monopolize his brand while attempting to move away from ventures requiring high capital. Now, here's a list of, I'm getting to a point here, so just bear with me. Donald Trump's 16 biggest business failures, according to, and this is going to come from Time magazine. So if you want to know the reference that I'm getting this from, here is, that's the link. Here are not so successful. Trump Airlines. In 1988, Trump bought Eastern Air Shuttle, an airline service that ran hourly flights between Boston, D.C. and New York City for 27 years prior for $365 million. He turned the airline, once a no-frills operation, into a luxury experience, adding maplewood veneer to the floor and gold-colored bathroom fixtures. There he goes with the gold again. The company never turned a profit, and the high debt forced him to default on his loans. Ownership of the company was turned over to creditors. It ceased to exist in 1992. As I said earlier, Trump Vodka. He owned his own vodka line in 2006, paired with the characteristic slogan, Success Distilled. Advertising for the product claimed that the vodka would demand the same respect and inspire the same awe as the international legacy and brand of Donald Trump himself. Trump had high hopes for his liquor brand, predicted the TNT, Trump and Tonic, would become the most ordered drink in the country, and stated on Larry King Live that he got into the vodka business to outdo his friends in Grey Goose. The company stopped production in 2011, reportedly due to a lack of interest. Grey Goose must have had the last laugh there, didn't they? Because Grey Goose is still around and is still considered one of the finest vodka brands out there, and a lack of interest. Well, duh. Why do I want something at the Trump vodka that's probably 5 times more than what I can get that's already an established brand through Grey Goose or Absolute? And why would anybody want a vodka that's simply selling due to the fact that it has the name of Donald Trump? The next one. The next one. And apparently I can't even. Apparently I'm reading this and I can't even believe that this is here. Trump. Trump Magazine. Trump Casinos, actually. I'm going. Trump Entertainment Resorts, which is composed of 3 Trump-owned casinos, all in the city, filed for bankruptcy for the 4th time in 2014. Trump has distanced himself from the company, saying that besides the company having his name, he had nothing to do with it, despite the fact that he owned 28% of its stock. Now remember, this is the same person who said he knew nothing about Project 2025. The same person, which was a lie, because we see that everything that he's enacted, everything that he said, everything that he's done was taken out of the playbook of Project 2025. So he kept saying he had nothing to do, and it's the same person who's saying that the Epstein files have exonerated him when his name appears more than any others in the files, but he's saying it exonerates him. Okay, Mr. Delusional Man, go ahead. And then, and I said nothing to do with Trump casinos, which, by the way, is a lie, because I may be too young to remember all of this, but the internet has a good memory, and this was in the days before there was before AI existed, before streaming existed, before the internet even existed. That these are all the pictures taken from when people had cameras before the days of a cell phone, and so pictures don't lie, and your name is on there. It's not a secret that Donald Trump, that until Carl Icahn got involved, it's no secret that Donald Trump was involved in these casinos. And yes, he had to do something about them, because a 28% stake in a company, it's not a lot, but you do have a big enough say to become one of the shareholding partners. And then apparently there was something called Trump the Game. Apparently there was a launched a Monopoly-like board game in 1989, which was discontinued a year later due to lack of interest. He tried his hand at game making once again in 2005 when he launched an updated version tied to The Apprentice. It was also discontinued. Are you seeing a pattern here? Are you seeing a pattern here? That Trump was never a well-liked person, even before he entered politics. You see what I'm getting at? And then Trump Magazine was a magazine that was launched in 2007, that in a press release announcing the publication's arrival was described as reflecting the passions of its fluent readership by tapping into a rich cultural tapestry. A year and a half after the launch, the magazine ceased publication. And by the way, we already have magazines that deal with this stuff that are way better and likely more expensive. Trump Steaks was another one, which was featured on the June 2007 cover of the Shopper Image catalog. Hunched over a platter of meat to kick off his line of premium steaks they dubbed the world's greatest. The company has since been discontinued. Surprise, surprise. Maybe it had something to do with Trump Steakhouse in Las Vegas being closed down in 2012 for 51 health code violations, including serving a 5-month-old duck. And I'm trying to get my head around this one. I'm going to read that again because that's insane. Trump Steakhouse in Las Vegas being closed down in 2012 for 51 health code violations, including serving a 5-month-old duck. Okay, so if that's the issue here, then why would I want to trust Donald Trump with my steak? If you're being closed down for 51 health code violations, which you probably still didn't pay, then why the hell would I want to trust you with my steak? And why would you be serving me a 5-month-old duck? If you're serving me a 5-month-old duck, that's a loss waiting to happen. Because if I'm eating a 5-month-old duck, guess what's going to happen? You get food poisoning, get very, very sick, and you will get a lawsuit knowingly you're serving duck that's spoiled. Because when you put profits over quality, that's a problem. And when you worry about why you're going out of business, but you don't seem to care that, oh, we're getting fined because of this, it's nothing to us. We'll just raise our prices and we'll pay it off. That's also a dick move you don't want to do, really. And I'm going to go back to the whoops. I accidentally got rid of the article. And then here was another website, GoTrump.com, which was a luxury travel search engine that he launched in 2006, only to shut down a year later, despite being powered by booking giant Travelocity. And as I said earlier, Trump University. And this may explain why Donald Trump has a personal vendetta against Letitia James, because following the suit, the university changed the Trump Entrepreneur Initiative before ending operations 1 year later. In 2013, the New York Attorney General sued Trump and the university for $40 million for allegedly defrauding students. So Letitia James and Donald Trump go way back. And Donald Trump, and this is why Trump hates Letitia James and is trying to come up with some bullshit lawsuit any way he can to get his revenge on her. There's only one problem with that. She's a lot smarter than he is. She's already beaten Trump in every case she's brought against him. Trump University, the Trump enterprise that we saw in court where he was charged 34 counts. She won that case too. She won the recent case with the mortgage fraud. She won that one. So Trump does not like Letitia James. Trump does not like James Comey. What he forgets is that James Comey was his FBI director in his first term that Trump fired. Here we go. Trump mortgage in 2006. Trump forayed further into the real estate industry, launching a mortgage company. The Donald and high-ups for the company asking CNBC, who knows more about financing than me? Okay. I'm going to go that again because the next line you can laugh. He's asking this question to CNBC, who knows more about financing than me? But the mortgage company shut down within a year and a half, in part because Trump selected E.J. Ridings, a man who claimed to be a top executive at a prestigious investment bank, but had actually only worked on Wall Street as a registered broker for 6 days to run the company. You see, smart people check people's references before they're hired into running a company, let alone a financial company. People's references are checked. They look at their portfolio. They look at their history. Maybe a background check here or there. But you hire somebody who worked almost for 6 days as a broker, Well, no more than why. But if you know more about, but if you know more about financing than anybody else, Mr. Trump, then you should vet better the people you're hiring to run your companies, right? Right? Who knows more about financing than you? Oh, I'd say economists, stockbrokers, people in real estate, you know, people who actually studied this and actually paid attention in school, people like that. And now we have successful companies, which is the Grand Hyatt Hotel, Trump Tower, Woman Ring, which he no longer owns. Today, it still remains a Central Park figure with more than 5 million, but he no longer has anything to do with it. 40 Wall Street, which is a building he purchased in 1905 for $1 million and renovated for 35. Today, it's one of the tallest office buildings in downtown, and it's worth over 500 million. Trump Place, The Apprentice, which is no longer on. Trump International Chicago. So as you can see, Trump is not as successful as he claims to be. And I bring this up because why? Because why would people want to go? Why would people want to go by what he says when he's a con artist? And history has shown time and again he frauds people. He doesn't pay them back. He doesn't give a shit. Because if you're having a restaurant with 51 health code violations, including duck that's 5 months old, no restaurant will ever serve 5-month-old duck or chicken or steak. In fact, if Gordon Ramsay was around at the time doing an extension of the Trump restaurant and saw this, he'd be yelling at Trump, cursing him, saying, "What the hell are you doing? You can't serve 5-month-old chicken, you fucking idiot!" He would make the Trump throw out the 5-month-old steak because you can get diseases, not just food poisoning. Meat is a serious thing. You could maybe eat chicken, maybe for 2 days, for leftovers. I've done that. I've cooked chicken. I put it in the oven for one reason or another. I couldn't eat it that day, and I couldn't cook it in the oven. I prepared it and everything, but I couldn't eat it that day for whatever reason. So I put it in the fridge, and I put it in the oven the next day to cook it. It wasn't cooked yet; it was frozen when it was prepared. I put it in the oven the next day, and you know what? It was still good. I made leftovers. I took my pieces. I had maybe 2 pieces left over. I put it in the fridge, and I ate it again. But that's it. 3 days, 2 days tops. 3 days, no. But there's a difference between serving it in my own house to myself as opposed to serving it in a restaurant where people are coming to buy, to go out to eat and buy dinner. There's a difference. The rules of my house don't apply to going out to eat. I don't have to answer to the health department in my house. I don't have to follow any rules in my house when I'm serving myself. But in a restaurant, there are rules you have to follow in the health department. Consumers, and also, I can't believe I'm saying this, common sense, really. How do you open up a restaurant without knowing any of the food laws, without knowing any sanitation laws, without knowing temperatures or the freshness? How do you not do that? You cannot open a restaurant. There's a reason why you need to have a food license when you're running a restaurant. There's a why you need a food handler's license. There's a reason why you need a vendor's license to have a mobile food truck. There are reasons for this. They want to make sure you know the rules, you know the laws, and you can tell the difference, and you can tell the temperature of what it's supposed to be. In fact, they use thermometers on meat. They use thermometers on meat to check the temperature because it has to be a certain temperature in order for it to be eaten. And there's a difference between also cooking chicken and burgers or meat. There's Nobody goes to a chicken and says, "I'd like my chicken well done." That's just broiled or baked. Nobody goes and say, but on meat, they say, "Do you want it well done? Do you want a medium rare? Do you want a rare?" A little pink is good. A lot of pink, that's a problem. So there's a difference in cooking chicken and there's a difference with cooking meat. Just like there's a difference in cooking duck. I don't know how to cook duck. I know how to cook chicken. I don't know how to cook duck. I don't usually buy it because it's expensive, but I'll eat it. But I don't know how to cook it. The same with turkey. Turkey needs to be cooked longer than chicken does. Turkey takes longer to prepare because it's a bigger bird. But I'm not going to say, but there's no shame in me saying I don't know either. Trump once said, in the end, you're measured not by how much you undertake, but by what you finally accomplish. His words, that he said it. He said it once in New York Magazine. And I'm actually going to save this because I want to read it for later. Um, but like any successful business person, Trump has had a share of setbacks. And I'm not saying that nobody has it. Everyone has failed in a business, but they never give up because there's always that one person that if you keep giving up, you'll never know. But at some point, you'll have failure after failure, and there's one business that's success. There's one business success, but you may have to fail. It's a perfect job. You go to all these auditions. I'll give you an example. People will go for audition for an acting role or anything, and you're very nervous because you don't know. And I auditioned twice for America's Got Talent. And they were laughing at me when I was telling my jokes. But it's very nerve-wracking because you don't know if they're laughing with you or at you. But I did it because I wanted to feel good about myself. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. I didn't care what others thought of me. People didn't believe that I did it. And they were shocked when I did. I did it because I wanted to respect myself. I wanted to see, because I'm always tired when people say what they're going to do, but they don't do it. Because actions speak louder than words. And so I wanted to put my money where my mouth is and actually do it. And I did it. I felt good about myself. I respect myself more. I get something in my comfort zone, but I didn't get through. And I'm not ashamed to say that I didn't. I make a joke when people say, how did it go? I say, well, I'm still here, aren't I? So there's no shame in failing because everybody failed. All these famous people, when they failed, and if they had given up, we wouldn't have half the things we have today. Okay? Everybody's going to fail. But in order to succeed, you got to fail until you find out one thing you're actually good at. And I speak for myself here. I speak for myself here when I say that. I'm not the best person out there for advice for a lot of things. When people ask me for relationship advice, I'm the last person they want to ask for relationship advice. But if they want my advice, I do my best to give them based on my own experiences. But everybody's a failure in life, and admitting that you're wrong, takes a lot of guts. But admitting that you're wrong, people respect you more. Unlike Donald Trump, who says he's never done anything wrong because it's impossible. Everybody's going to do something wrong. Everybody is doing something wrong, and there's no shame in admitting you did something wrong, because people respect you more. If you say, "Yeah, I know it was a risk, but I had to take it because without that risk, I wouldn't have known. If I didn't take that risk, I wouldn't have known if I would have succeeded or not." And so there's no shame in doing that. So as I complained, Trump mortgage, Trump steaks, and by the way, the prices of his Trump steaks range from $1.99 for a pack of 12 steak burgers and 4 steaks, all up to $9.99 for a selection of 16 top cuts. Now, whether or not this is true, I don't know. But I can tell you, I've never seen a steak in a butcher shop or in my supermarket. I would say the most I've ever paid for it was like $35, and that was the cheapest one because it goes by weight. I don't know any steak that's $200 or even $1,000. They better be some damn good steaks. If I'm paying that amount of money, they better be a damn good steak for the price I'm paying for that. But I don't know any place. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know anything. I don't know any place that sells steaks for $200, unless you're in a steakhouse. But even in a steakhouse, a steak will start at maybe $65 if you're lucky. Okay, okay. Even in a steakhouse, the cheapest steak would be $65, maybe going up to $80 or $85. But I've never seen a steak cost more than that. Now, if you have, correct me if I'm wrong. And anyway, when you're cooking a steak, it diminishes in size anyway because heat shrinks. So And here's more. The Trump steakhouse, as I said, was briefly shut down following 51 health code violations, including expired yogurt and a 5-month-old duck. First of all, expired yogurt is actually worse than a duck because that's dairy. And a lot of people are lactose intolerant or, cheese. I just had a piece of spoiled cheese in my house that I don't know if it is spoiled, but it didn't have a good taste. Now, maybe Swiss cheese is supposed to have a funny taste. I don't know. I'm not a. But here's the article about the Trump steak. This was written in on the 2019. The authority violations have merit a C grade district. Inspectors reported finding outdated, expired, unlabeled, mishandled, and improperly stored food, according to a summary posted on the Health Director. And by the way, this isn't just Trump, because I've seen Gordon Ramsay's restaurant shows, and everyone does this, where they mishandle or properly unlabel places, or they even put it in the wrong, or they even shelve it next to another thing that they shouldn't, or there's blood in the chicken. So it's not just Trump. But again, we didn't have Gordon Ramsay in 2019. Gordon Ramsay isn't this wasn't the celebrity he is now that he was back then. Back then, we probably didn't have a Gordon Ramsay burger or a Gordon Ramsay pub or the Gordon Ramsay television shows. So back then, Gordon Ramsay would have made mincemeat out of Donald Trump. While ready-to-eat food can be stored for up to 7 days, inspectors at DJT reported finding the old caviar and yogurt, a duck that dated back to June, veal stock and tomato sauce that was almost 2 weeks old, and expired peanut dressing and black bean chili. Inspectors found no measures to destroy parasites, undercooked halibut and salmon, and noted that raw tuna was being improperly thawed. Ices were found in a faulty freezer. Now, I don't want to brag here and everything. Now I'm telling all this because I'm getting to an entire thing here, but first of all, spoiled fish is really really bad. Fish has mercury, which is why they tell pregnant women don't eat fish when you're pregnant. But fish actually does spoil very very quickly, and that is a fact. There's a reason why fishermen go out every 2 days to catch because there's a reason why lobsters are cooked live when they're alive. There are reasons for that. Fish has to be frozen. It has to be stored in crates with ice in it because fish will spoil very, very quickly, which is why they are not going to serve fish. Which is why they are not going to serve the fish that you had today tomorrow. If on the menu you have halibut and the next day you don't, it's because they no longer have it. Fish is one of those things that could make somebody deathly ill very, very quickly. And that's not a joke. And that is my thing with Donald Trump. He doesn't give a shit about you. He doesn't care. He's hiring people who aren't qualified. Back then, he did that too. And you can see that because he's hiring RFK Jr., who has no medical degree and no medical license, to run health agencies. And then happily telling people he snorted coke while sitting on a toilet. Who the fuck cares? And why are you telling us this? First of all, okay, so you smoke coke, so you snorted coke sitting on a toilet back then, years ago. Okay, fine. Who cares? But why would you tell us that? Are you trying to say it's okay to do it? Are you trying to say it's okay to smoke marijuana? Why are you taking a dump on the toilet? So this goes back decades. This is just being in the presidency. This is decades where he's hiring people who are unqualified because he only cares more about the bottom line. And when a company cares more about the bottom line than their employees or their customers, well, that is a big problem, my friends. Because the person you hire to run your company is a person that's going to be responsible for the good and the bad. And you've had people who've had to resign from companies because of scandals and things like that. Because once the company loses faith in you, you have to start rebranding and change your image. Because why would I trust a company that just got 51 violations? Why would I want to eat by a restaurant that got 51 violations and is purposely serving expired yogurt or months old duck or doesn't care about parasites or bacteria? Why would I want to risk myself into that? Why would I want to put myself into that situation and risk it and risk killing and risk getting sick or worse? Why would I want to risk that knowingly? Why would I need to do that? What Trump said about the stakes was, when it comes to great stakes, I've just raised the stakes. Trump stakes are the world's greatest stakes. Treat yourself to the very, very best life has to offer. One bite, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and believe me, I understand steaks. They're my favorite food. Well, I guess, so what about McDonald's? So is McDonald's no longer your favorite food? Because you're always seeing pictures eating McDonald's and a burger with fries and a Coke. So is that not your favorite? So if steak's your favorite food, shouldn't you be eating that instead? And he knows steaks. And yet, Trump steaks is the way of the dodo bird, extinct, never coming back. And I'm old enough, but I don't know enough about Trump steaks. I've never seen it anywhere. So this must have been when I was maybe 6 years old, 7 years old. I don't know. I don't really remember Trump steaks. And truthfully, I wouldn't even buy a Trump steak, let alone a $200 steak in my supermarket. And why would I buy a $200 steak when I can buy a steak for, I don't know, $25? I like my steaks, but I also know that I'd rather go with name recognition than a person that no one trusts. As I said, Trump vodka. Trump said about the vodka when it launched, by the summer of '06, I fully expect the most called for cocktail in America to be the TNT or the Trump and Tonic. Well, first of all, that's not a cocktail anyway. So that's number one. If you didn't know anything, that's not a cocktail. But number two, I don't. Why would I want to go for Trump when I can go for a better brand? I guarantee you that the Trump vodkas were the same vodka that's for Absolute or Grey Goose or Cheetos or whatever else is out there. I can guarantee you they were all. It's the same thing. Just like those Trump watches they tried to con America into, they weren't never made in America. They were made in China. They were made in China. Just like those Trump phones that never came to fruition, made in China. So I guarantee you he just paid to have his name put on that label. That was it. But I guarantee you the Trump vodka was the exact same vodka that you were drinking if it was another brand. Of that I can assure you. And I guarantee you Trump was charging 3 times more for that vodka than it actually costs you to buy in a store somewhere. And somewhere in a warehouse, they probably have a whole bunch of Trump stuff that never sold that they can't get rid of. And then I said Trump game. Trump first released his own pseudo Monopoly board game in '89, but it didn't sell well and was discontinued after a year. Anybody shocked by that? After the success of his TV show, he revived and updated the game in 2005. You can still purchase the game today via several online retailers. And I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon. No, you can't. Okay. What Trump said at the time, Parker Brothers and Donald Trump are challenging consumers to determine whether they have the brains and the brawn to be the next Donald Trump. With the launch of Trump the Game, the new high-stakes board game where you play your cards right, you can make hundreds of millions just like the Donald. Well, first of all, he said it. He admitted to himself right there. If you have the brains to be the next Donald Trump, nobody wants to be the next Donald Trump. And basically, why would I want to play your game when it's exactly the same like Monopoly? Again, this was basically Trump Monopoly. You're just putting your name on a game that already exists to sell more, just to sell to make a profit because it has your name on it, and hopefully people will fall for that con. And I admit that Monopoly is popular and has Monopoly New York, Monopoly Star Trek, Monopoly Star Wars, Monopoly DC, Monopoly Marvel, but that's different. People are fans of Monopoly. People are fans of Marvel. People are fans of Star Wars, but they also buy these games and they never open it because years now later they're worth millions and millions of dollars because they become collectors' items. So people are collecting to be collectors. It's like collecting Star Wars Lego and different types of Lego. You don't open it, and years later you go to a convention and they can be sold for twice, three times as much as when you bought it originally because that's what collectors do. I don't think people are collecting Monopoly, Trump Monopoly, to play. I think people are playing Monopoly because they like Monopoly. People don't want to be like Donald Trump. Trust me. And if you do, then you need help. And then Trump Ice was basically available at Trump casinos for some time. According to Trump, it was so good that people wanted to buy cases of it. So the bottles were produced and distributed to the masses. They never hit it big. See, Trump is delusional. He thinks that people want something, so he starts manufacturing mass quantities of them, but then they sit in the stores and the warehouses, and nobody's buying them. So you're losing money on it because no one is buying something. You're convinced that people want them. And it's Trump Ice. It's water. What's so good about water? To me, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but to me, water is water. What's the difference between Poland Spring and Dasani or Evian? I don't understand how people could spend $15 on a big bottle of smart water or Dasani or Evian. I don't understand it. I go to a store and buy a $2 bottle of water and that's it. I don't understand how people drink all this water and say, yeah, they can tell the difference. I'm missing something here. You can still find bottles on eBay if you're interested in tasting the purest, in quotes, bottled water. And although it was discontinued, the official Trump website says you can find Trump Ice at especially food stores and grocery chains nationwide. No, you can. I've gone to 7-Eleven. Never have I seen anywhere Trump Ice. I've never seen it. I've gone to Wawa. Never seen Trump Ice anywhere. I've gone to Amazon. Never seen Trump Ice anywhere on Amazon's website. Never ever have I seen that. So I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what they're talking about. You could get it grocery chains nationwide. Whole Foods, which is Amazon, doesn't sell Trump Ice at all. And of course, when I click on the link where it says Trump website it says 404 page not found. So that's got to tell you something right there. So that's got to tell you something right there. One of the questions somebody asked him why is water so good. He says it's low sodium. In fact, it has no sodium. Well, so does Poland Springs. So does Evian. So does Fiji. They all have. None of these waters have sodium. Is he trying to sell something that everyone already knows is asinine? Everybody knows there's no sodium in water. That's why water is healthy. You ever see? That's why joggers are drinking water. That's why you see people drink nothing but water because there's nothing in water. There is no sodium. So the fact that he's saying, so if it's no sodium, why are you saying it's low sodium? And then in fact saying it has no sodium. You can't say it's either one or the other. It's not both. You know, go Trump. GoTrump.com was a search engine for bargains and luxury travel deals. It was powered by Travelocity.com, so it started off pretty well. However, the site was quickly ripped apart by critics and was shut down after a year. What Trump said when he launched the site, it doesn't matter how rich you are. You don't want to be a fool. You want to get the best deal. The people who aren't rich want to associate with rich, and that's why this thing has become so crazy. When you get millions of people using your service, and you get X dollars per person, it adds up to a lot of money. Yeah, for you. All that in his sentence right now was basically manipulation. People want the best deal, but they also want a deal that makes sense. But yes, people want to associate with the rich, but in a way that doesn't get them broke either. And today you can get plenty of good deals on Booking.com. Again, he came out when these sites didn't exist. But today you have Booking.com, you have Kayak, you have Priceline, you have Google.flights, you have Skiplag, you have cheap flights, you have Trivago, Hotels.com, Hostelworld.com. You have all these places where you can get good deals. You have Trump Magazine. Then you had New Jersey Generals, which was, I don't know what this was, but New Jersey Generals was something from 83 to 85. Okay, I just don't remember because I was 3 years old at the time, so I wouldn't have remembered it. But Trump originally owned the New Jersey Generals, a United States Football League team, but quickly sold them to focus on construction projects like Trump Tower. Later, he changed his mind, reacquiring the team. In '84, surprise, surprise, the team folded 1 year later in 1985, along with the entire USFL. People blamed Trump for the demise of not only the team, but the entire league. Allegedly, he was trying to pull the games into the NFL and made poor investment decisions in the process. In May 2014, Trump expressed interest in buying the Buffalo Bills. At the time, Trump said, "Without me, the USFL would have been dead immediately. It was a league that was failing badly. I did something I rarely do with the USFL. I went for something that was not good, not established, and was falling and was failing. I knew that, but I also went for the cheap. I bought something for peanuts." He also called the USFL a second-rate operation. This guy, as you see back then, he was very egotistical and so into himself that he was basically saying, "It's all me, 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 I. That without me, all of this would have not succeeded." The problem was, it doesn't even exist anymore. And it was Trump that actually killed it, as usual, which goes back to what I keep saying is anything Trump touches dies. Which means if you're getting into an investment with Donald Trump, you better run. Because A, you're never going to see a penny from that investment. B, that investment is likely going to go belly up. Or C, Donald Trump's going to screw you over and try to buy you out, which is really normal, or all of the above. But Trump is not a good businessman at all. But Trump is not a very good businessman at all. In fact, the other one that I said earlier, Trump Airlines. Trump bought Eastern Air Shuttle in 1988, which had been running for 27 years between Boston, New York City, and DC, and updated it to make it look more glitzy and Trump-esque. But because it was a short-distance airline, customers weren't looking for a luxury experience, just something that was convenient. So this was a bust. On top of that, the pre-Gulf War fuel prices were extremely high. The airline never turned profit, and Trump defaulted on his loans as usual. At the time, Trump said it worked out well for me. Of course it did. He had made profit off of it. I ran an airline for a couple of years and made a couple of bucks. The airline business is a tough business, but I did great with it. If you did great with it, wouldn't it still exist? Wouldn't it really still exist? And here's the other one. Trump Entertainment Resorts. 4 bankruptcies between 1991, 2004, 2000, and 2014. Trump Entertainment Resorts filed for corporate bankruptcy for 4 times. 4 times! The first time was after the Trump Taj Mahal's construction in 1991. The next time was in 2004 when it filed for voluntary bankruptcy after accumulating $1.8 billion in debt. Next came 2008, 2009 when the company missed a $53.1 million bond interest payment. The stock dropped to 23 cents per share from 14. And finally, in September of 2014, the company filed bankruptcy once again. The company still exists despite its bankruptcy. What Trump said about the bankruptcy in court, I don't like the B word. Additionally, during an MSNBC interview, Michael Isikoff asked Trump what exactly he was paid for if he had nothing to do with running the company. And Trump replied to that, "Excuse me, because of my genius." Okay? Well, Mr. Genius, how do you explain 4 casinos going under? Okay? If you're a genius, you should know how to run a business. And nobody pays somebody because they are a genius. Somebody pays you for A, licensing rights, trademark rights, partners, investing. But no one's paying somebody because you're a genius. And if you're a fucking genius, wouldn't you still have the casinos? Wouldn't you still have Trump Magazine? Or the airline? Or steaks? Or even, hell, your Trump restaurant? Nobody's paying a genius. Nobody's paying a genius millions of dollars just because they're a genius. If somebody's paying me $28 million, there's a reason for it. I'm consulting for them. I'm investing in their company. I'm helping them out. No one's going to pay somebody, hey, you're a genius. Here's $30 million. Knock yourself out. Did people pay Einstein $30 million because he was a genius? Or Isaac Newton? Or Bill Gates? Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they started their businesses with their own money from scratch. Nobody gave them money. Nobody gave them money. These people were smart people. Steve Wozniak was a smart person. He started the company with his friend Steve Jobs, and then he left the company to pursue other ventures, just like Paul Allen did. And Paul Allen invested in a sports team. All of these people who are geniuses today, Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary, all these people from Shark Tank, Jeff Bezos, they all started their own companies from scratch by using their own money. They invested, they took out loans, and they paid them back. Nobody's paying somebody because you are a freaking genius. Because if you're a freaking genius, then hell, I'm a genius too. What makes somebody a genius? You are the President of the United States, and all you say out of your mouth is pure poop. You don't speak any. If you're a genius, then you would know how to run a country. You would know the laws of this country. You would know that the Supreme Court's decision on the tariffs, and you'd respect that. Because geniuses don't, just because you're a genius doesn't mean you know everything. Even geniuses admit to not knowing everything. Even geniuses are okay with somebody else saying, you're wrong. Even a genius will admit that they're wrong. A genius doesn't make you smart. A genius makes you smart because you're willing to learn from other people. You're willing to hear other people out. A genius knows when to shut up and when to speak. A genius knows the difference between right and wrong, and a genius knows how to respect other people, not being a misogynist, not being a pedophile, not being a rapist or a sex offender, not being a felon, and not being a con artist. And this president is. And that was the point of what I was doing here. That was the point of reading this article. That was the point of this, to show you that Trump was always this way, and people and many people knew about that. Everybody knew that Trump, over the years, was a con artist. He's a scammer. He's a fraud. This has nothing to do with him being sitting in that White House. This was always Trump. He was always a narcissistic, egotistical sociopath. Okay, he was never well liked. People didn't want to do business with him. He never paid people. And by the way, all the people that worked for him were immigrants. Some of them were even illegal. His wives were. There are people that worked for him who never got paid a day in their life. And just to prove that point about how stupid Trump doesn't really care about you, he had something in 2006 and 7 called Trump Tower Tampa, which was never built. Nothing ever came of it. The buyers lost a lot of money in the deal. The site was finally sold for $5 million. Trump said the buyers were better off losing their deposit. That's his response. Trump isn't rich. Trump got rich by stealing from everybody else. That's how he got his money. Okay, his father gave him $1,000 loan that he never paid back. And yes, you should pay back your parents if they're giving you money for a loan. As I said, Trump University. Trump compares ideas to Trump University to Einstein's in the Trump University Entrepreneurship 101 official book. Albert Einstein believed that a theory of everything in physics unified the four primal forces of nature: gravity, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, and electromagnetic force. Our unifying theory for sustainable success in business is much simpler. The customer is everything. Well, if the customer is everything, then treat them with respect. Treat them well. But anyway, that is who he is. And so this whole thing, with Trump, with the Supreme Court, and tariffs, and being a cruel, heartless, and vindictive asshole, this is who Donald Trump is. Do you remember the Trump phones that Trump announced? That was going to cost $47.99 a month because of the 47th president? And then he had all the carriers on board, and the phones were going to be in gold? Whatever came of that phone? Where's the phone? I went to my AT&T store the other day. I asked them about the Trump phone. They looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, what are you talking about? I went to Verizon store. I said, is a Trump phone available? I couldn't find it online. T-Mobile, the same thing. So where the hell is a Trump phone that people put a pre-order on? That all the carriers said were going to announce? This is what? The announcement was made a year ago? A year ago? It was made by Donald Trump Jr. Even went on to say, here's how our phone's going to be different. So where the hell is the Trump phone? Where's the Trump phone? Then you get to go and buy a Bible. Why would I have to buy a Bible that I can get for free on my phone? I have a copy of my Bible sitting on my shelf, the Old Testament, but still. But I have the entire set sitting around my desk, a Bible. I can get it for free. I go to a library. I can download it on my phone. I go to my synagogue. I can read the Bible for free. I mean, granted, you have to buy it in the stores because it's a business, but either way, why would I Trump? Because it has Trump's name on it, so it's a good Bible? And these watches that he was selling, or these gold sneakers that turned out weren't actually gold sneakers. Those gold sneakers were regular Nike sneakers painted gold, and they charged you $1,000 for it. And his followers eat this up like it's nothing. But I just proved to you, Donald Trump is a scammer. Donald Trump is a fraud. Donald Trump is a con artist. And Donald Trump only got rich because he stole money from all of you. And he's doing the same thing with these tariffs. He has no intention of paying this money back. He said it has to be litigated. It shouldn't be litigated. The Supreme Court ruled you must return them. Well, they didn't rule. The rule was you are committing illegal, unconstitutional tariffs that only can be approved by Congress, not you. So businesses started filing lawsuits to get their money back, and Trump said litigation. Except, which is funny coming from him, because if he doesn't like the ruling of the Supreme Court, why will he like the ruling when the courts say he has to pay the money back? He doesn't like the law. And when he loses that case, where the judge is going to say, you must pay the money back, and he's going to say, I'm not paying that money back. Everybody knows who Trump is. People that kept telling you, don't vote for this guy. Do not vote for this guy. And you voted for him. Everyone that speaks bad about this guy and you attack and say you have Trump deranged syndrome, which is not even existing, which doesn't even exist, ask yourself, why are you so brainwashed into this MAGA cult? when everybody knows the history of Donald Trump. They know who he is. They know his companies. He is not a businessman. He doesn't know anything about anything. He is not a genius. Any advice he's getting as the president, he's getting bad advice. He takes his ideas from Putin. Putin tells him mail-in ballots are bad. Poof, they're gone. He's telling you the election was rigged of 2020 and he won. Let's assume it is. There's nothing you can do about it now. Let's assume that he's right. He's not, but let's assume he is. There's nothing you can do about it now. Trying to change it, trying to fix that isn't going to change anything. But seizing those election ballots from Fulton County is committing state laws, federal laws, and privacy laws. So, I mean, I only did this. I was only going down the list of all of these Trumpists to prove the point that Trump is a con artist. He doesn't give one iota of a shit about you or me. And as the president, he's using the presidency, 1, to stay out of jail, 2, to get rich by Americans and by other companies. He's using extortion to get the money. He's using blackmail to get the money. And he's using threats and intimidation to get the money. When he seized Venezuela, it was never, ever about the oil. It was never about the oil. And it really wasn't about getting Maduro out of power. It was all about how can I take this oil for myself. And that is why he told Exxon to go fuck themselves when they made a comment that Donald Trump didn't like. And when he's saying he's putting all that oil money into an offshore account in Qatar, ask yourself, why? The same Qatar that gave him a plane that was also illegal and unconstitutional. Why is he putting money in an offshore account when he specifically said that money is going to help America? No, it's not. It's going to be helping you and your company, because if it wasn't meant for you, it wouldn't be an offshore account that we know nothing about. You're putting an offshore account so that it can't be traced. We aren't stupid. And the people that keep believing that Donald Trump is the greatest person out there, they're just as delusional as the next person. Because Donald Trump doesn't really give a fuck about you. Okay, you may think he cares about you being in his cult and being in MAGA and everything. He doesn't give a shit about you. He's using you to get what he wants. That's all it is. Donald Trump is nothing but a con artist. He's a fraud. He's a fake. He's a loser. He will always be a con artist. He'll always be a scam artist. He'll always be a loser. And he'll always be a fake. He lost his case in court with Letitia James. He lost in court every time. He has never ever won a case, and he's never paid anything. He despises the courts. He goes against the courts. He's a pathological liar when the judges ask him, why did you go against what I said? Okay, he's making up bullshit lawsuits, wasting our taxpayer money to do whatever he wants. And he's a pathological liar. And when he comes to a judge, he's like, fuck you, I'm the president, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I don't give a shit what you say because you're a Democratic judge. And whether or not that may be true, judges are biased. They're not going to play one over the other. If you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law. It doesn't matter if the judge is a Republican or a Democrat. And FYI, half the judges that have been ruling against Trump are Trump-appointed judges. So him saying that they're Democratic judges is just him forgetting what he did because he has dementia. He has dementia. And Donald Trump will never, ever change. So I don't give a shit what you MAGites say. I don't give a shit what you say about him. Unless you know Donald Trump through the years, you have no credibility whatsoever. You ask me, I keep getting asked, why do you hate Donald Trump so much? And I've given my responses many times. And when I say, what's so good about Donald Trump? And you're telling me, well, he's getting rid of all the illegals. I said, except he's also getting rid of all the American citizens. Like, no, he's not. I said, yes, he is. And when Donald Trump could show who people really are, turn friends against each other, turn friends into enemies, and he's getting family members to deport their own family members, or their neighbors. And you're saying, well, that's okay. And if you're okay with cold-blooded execution murders, and your response is, well, they were just in the way, well, then you're no better than he is. You're no better than he is. But Donald Trump is Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his son, Donald Trump Jr., is even worse. Okay? Donald Trump is even worse. All these people that are in Trump's cabinet are in the Epstein files. And they are also Trump's personal friends. The only reason why they weren't in the cabinet during the first term is because Trump learned his lesson. Because the people that were in Trump's cabinet in the first term put him in his place. But now he wanted loyalists who would let him get away with whatever he wants. And I blame that on Congress. I blame that on Mike Johnson, Trump's bitch. And they will get their due. Mark my words. When the Democrats retake control of the House and the Senate, mark my words, they will be held. All these people will be held accountable. All of them, including Donald Trump, whether he likes it or not. But Donald Trump is a gaslighter. He's a narcissist. He's a sociopath. He's egotistical. He's a misogynist. He's a racist. He's a bigot. He is everything that is wrong with a country. He is everything I despise in a human being. He is everything I despise in a human being. And that's not saying it lightly. I don't say that lightly. But Donald Trump, I despise that man. He is the evil human being you can possibly think. He is everything I hate in humanity. He has no compassion. He has no empathy. He has nothing. He has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And you can attack me for everything you want. If I speak the truth and you want to attack me for it, be my guest. But he is doing irreparable harm to this country. He is certainly, and a lot of countries in Europe know who he is. And Donald Trump is single-handedly isolating us from the rest of the world because he's alienating every single person. And Donald Trump only gives a shit about one person, and that's Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is going to use bullying and threats and intimidation to get what he wants, and blackmail to get what he wants. And he doesn't care who he hurts along the way, even if it's you, a cult member. It doesn't care. As long as he gets what he wants, he will hurt anybody he gets along the way, and he doesn't care. He will throw you under the bus the minute he gets. The minute he gets a chance, he will throw you under the bus. You can be as loyal as you want. But the minute he has the chance to throw you under the bus to get his way, he is going to do that. And we told you so, and you didn't listen. And I'm sorry this is a longer podcast than ever, but it had to be said. And I don't care if this insults people. I don't really care if people get insulted by this, because the truth does hurt. And Trump will never ever change. Okay? He's not a genius. He doesn't know everything, and he's not above the law. He will be held accountable. Mark my words. It won't be today. It won't be tomorrow, but it will happen. And when it does, we will be partying in the street. He may be 79 years old. He may be delusional. He may be an asshole. But he still is a human being who will answer for everything he's done over the years, because eventually the past catches up to you. And as we see, we're starting to see that the past is catching up to him. No matter how much he wants to deny it, no matter how much he wants to blame other people, there are people out there who know Donald Trump personally. There are people out there who know the history of Donald Trump. And there are people out there who will speak up. And even now we see people in MAGA are opening their eyes and starting to turn against him. And the Supreme Court ruling is helping, because people are now seeing that even with the Supreme Court ruling about tariffs against him, the tariffs are illegal, and Trump's still saying, fuck the Supreme Court. People are now starting to wake up and sing the man for who he really is. So maybe there is still hope for us. Maybe humanity still. Because if people are now starting to wake up and realize, hey, wait a minute, this man isn't great, and this man is nothing special. If there are a lot of people who are waking up from their cult and realizing the truth, perhaps this is truly the beginning of the end of Donald Trump's downfall.